So after reviewing what I think is the worst episode of Season 2, today's review of The Mandalorian is for one of my favorite episodes of the season. This is Chapter 11 called The Heiress, despite the fact that it clocks in at only 29 minutes, and yes, that is too short for an episode. But one massive thing that this episode just has going for it is the fact that it's directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. And I already said in my review for episode 4 of season 1 that she also directed, that I really liked the way that she directed it. And now also having seen future episodes that she directed, it's like, yeah, it's pretty clear that she has a good talent for directing, and this episode really shows it. So after the disaster of the last episode, the Razor Crest is looking really rough. They do get to trash the planet where they were supposed to go, but they have a very rough landing. Luckily, they do get hauled out of the water by some kind of converted AT-AT, which I thought was a nice little Easter egg. So the frogs are reunited, and then the husband tells Din where he can get a lead on how to find the Mandalorians, even though at that point we see a shot of one of those Mandalorians literally watching Din. Now, I don't really know who she is. I've heard that she is a famous wrestler, but I've only heard that because people told me. I don't follow wrestling. I don't care, honestly. I do think she's well cast in that role. You know, she is one of the Mandalorians who kicks ass, so that's cool, and I think she plays the role well. But once they're inside the inn, Grogu actually gets some food served that tries to eat him for a change. How do you like that, you little fucking shit? Yes, I still cannot really get over the fact that he tried to eat every fucking egg that he could find in the previous episode. It was so annoying. Like, this feels like I'm vindicated, like justified, you know? But either way, Din pays for some information, and then the Mon Cala gets a Quarren to get to a place where he might be able to find some Mandalorians. What I do like is the connection to an arc in the Clone Wars. For the people who have seen the Clone Wars, there's an arc in Season 4 where the Mon Cala people and the Quarren make a better relationship between themselves after having years of conflict between them. So it was nice to see that connection carry through to here, because this is just a hint of what you can expect in terms of animated stuff being brought into live action. So Din goes with the Quarren onto the barge, and there, well, they try to catch him because they want the Beskar armor. But then we have one of my favorite moments still to this day in all of The Mandalorian, Katee Sackhoff appearing as the character of Bo Katan in live action for the first time. Now, upon rewatch, of course, we know that she has been in the show for quite a while, ever since this episode, and she actually got quite a big role in Season 3. But back then, I remember back in 2020, we were waiting for something like this, but we never really knew if it was actually going to happen. And as someone who was a big fan of the animated stuff, and I had seen all of the Clone Wars and all of Rebels, the fact that we actually got a character from the Clone Wars in live action, also portrayed by the same actress, which was a nice coincidence that Katee Sackhoff voiced her, because she also is a good live action actress. That's why she was able to carry over, unlike certain voice actors who haven't carried over. But in this case, seeing her, it was amazing. It still is amazing. I absolutely love this moment, and it just means so much to now have all of these characters being brought into live action the way they are. So this is a moment that still resonates with me even all these years later. I still remember how it was back in the day. And I also remember that when I used to watch all the animated stuff and I saw Mandalorians, they would always take their helmet off. It would never be an issue. So now we finally have somewhat of an answer as to why Din doesn't do it, and Bo Katan and every other Mandalorian that we've seen at this point has just taken their helmet off, because Din is part of a very zealous group of Mandalorians, and therefore he has his belief where he can't take his helmet off. Very easy explanation. We had to wait for it, but at least we got here. But also, I just remember throughout Season 1, people were saying this, and I agreed, like, yeah, why is this a thing? Well, now you got your explanation. So in that regard, I do feel this episode is just very satisfying. It's scratching a couple of itches that, you know, I've just had for a while. Like the thing about not taking the helmets off, the thing about other Mandalorians that we've seen in canon that we know at this point are still alive in the timeline. Like, where are they? They're showing up. that we're getting answers. That's why it's just very nice. And as I said, as an animated fan, I feel very vindicated with this episode. But Bo Katan and her posse decide to help Din out once again after they didn't really hit it off on the barge. And then Din is like, okay, I'll listen to you. They lay out their mission. Din brings Grogu over to the frogs to babysit. And the mission is honestly really cool. Just them, those 4 Mandalorians, taking on a Gozanti freighter, which is full of Imperials. Like, this sequence is just so much fun. It is purely fun action in Star Wars. It's well directed, well shot. Again, credit to Bryce Dallas Howard for making it a good sequence where you're easily able to follow everything that's going on. We see all these characters that we know and love. In my case, yeah, I do know and love these characters, at least 2 of them. Just, we see them kick all the ass throughout the sequence, and it's like, yes! It's just awesome to see this sequence. So, absolutely love it. And then especially to the point where we get, Bo Katan is facing off with the Imperial captain, who, by the way, is played by an actor who also appeared in an episode of Star Trek Voyager, 2 episodes. So, another actor who crossed over between Star Trek and Star Wars. It's fine. It's fine. This is fine. No problem. You can be a fan of both at the same time. That's why I'm also piecing together the Lego Enterprise right now. But anyway, the moment that she's facing him, she mentions the darksaber. And as I already said in my review for episode 8 of season 1, I really would have loved to see what had happened between Bo Katan and Gideon. But at least this confirms that Bo Katan did lose the darksaber to Gideon at some point. And, well, at this point, I was still holding out hope that we would actually see what would happen. Now 3 seasons of Mandalorian, and with the movie coming up, I don't think we're ever going to see that. But, oh well. It's at least nice to see Bo Katan addressing it, because that was definitely something that was in my mind when I was watching this episode. Like, she had the darksaber, what happened to it? But something that she then mentions to Din is probably the biggest name drop in all of Star Wars TV shows, or maybe even movies in general. I'm not sure how you would qualify it, but Bo Katan tells Din to seek out Ahsoka Tano on the planet of Corvus. And again, now that we have seen Ahsoka in more episodes and also her own TV show, season 2 of Ahsoka is coming up. Come on, Disney, can we get a release date already? But anyway, the point is, at that time, we knew what that meant. We knew we are actually going to see live action Ahsoka Tano. And at the time, that was one of the biggest things, considering that Ahsoka Tano is one of the fan favorites. She is in my top 10 favorite Star Wars characters of all time. Already was back then, still is, hasn't changed in that regard. Like, Ahsoka Tano is such a huge fan favorite for everyone. So the fact that we knew at that point we were going to get her in live action was just unreal. So that's why all these years later, I still look back on this episode and I'm just like, this was a hugely important episode for what it set up for the future, for what it could do, for what it showed us animation fans, what we could expect in years to come. And that's just awesome to see and to look back on, I think. So at the end, the Mandalorians take over the Gozanti freighter. Din goes back to the Razor Crest and gets Grogu so they can go find Ahsoka. But of course, the next episode is not yet going to go into that. He's first going to go visit Navarro, because let's be fair, the Razor Crest, after what the Mon Cala did with it, is still not looking great. So he does need a little bit of help from his friends on Navarro. But yeah, at the end of this episode, as I said, I am still so satisfied with what this episode did at the time. I can still look back at this and be like, this was a hugely important episode for the future of Star Wars live action TV shows, everything going forward. The way that they were able to weave in animated stuff that I have been watching for so long, it's hugely important, because it very much just vindicates all of us animation fans, and like, this is actually something that you should watch. So if you haven't seen the animated stuff, if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, Rebels, the Bad Batch, all that stuff, do yourself a favor and watch it. It is some of the best content that you have. Also some of the worst. But in general, some of the episodes that you have in the animated TV shows are honestly some of the best Star Wars that you're ever going to see. So do yourself a favor and just watch it. Like, if you need a TV show to watch, everyone I feel needs a TV show to watch at some point. The Clone Wars is on Disney Plus, probably the same streaming service where you're watching your live action Star Wars. So if you have that streaming service, if you are watching live action Star Wars, why are you not watching the animated stuff? Introduce your kids if you have kids, or watch it with anyone. I implore you to do this because I honestly think it is worth your time. It really is some of the best Star Wars. Sure, some of it may feel kiddie, and that is just going to be a thing. That's just how it is. But some of it truly is very adult, very much for the entire family. So, yeah, I have said this before and I'll say it again. Watch the animated stuff. It's very important because these episodes are what makes it worth it for me as well. You know, like when I watch this episode, it's like, yes, thank you. This is exactly why I watched the animated stuff. I felt so happy with this episode, and I still do all these years later. I still think it's a good episode. It really kickstarts the season. Like, instead of the fillery bullshit that was the previous episode, this really gets things going. A lot of important things happen, carrying the plot forward. So, absolutely love this episode. But that's all that I have to say about Chapter 11, called The Heiress. What do you have to say about Season 2, Episode 3 of The Mandalorian? Did you like this one? Did you love this one? Or are there things that you were like, well, I don't really understand this? Well, if you don't understand it, you might want to watch the animated shows, because there may be things, you know, there's an entire backstory for the character of Bo Katan in there. You might be interested in that, considering she is in this episode. Anyway, I've said enough. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please subscribe to my channel for more Star Wars content. And of course, until my next video, may the Force be with you.